Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the 2026 Texas Policy Summit. My name is Julie Warren, and I am the Vice President of State Affairs at TPPF, and it is my honor to serve as your MC this morning's program. We have a big day ahead of us, which includes our breakfast panel led by our CEO, Greg Sindelar, hosting a discussion with the leaders of our 2 great Texas universities. Our universities play a vital role in shaping the lives of Texans, and as we give thanks for the food we are about to share, may we also pray that Chancellor Creighton, Chancellor Hegar, and of our educational leaders, professors, teachers are blessed with wisdom and discernment, so they may help all students achieve their highest potential and to advance the pursuit of truth and knowledge from which we all benefit. I would like to invite Chris Gober to join me on stage for our invocation this morning. Chris is a 7th-generation Texan, a proud member of the Fightin' Texas Aggie class of 2001. And a devoted husband and father, raising 2 daughters in Austin. After graduating from Texas A&M and Harvard Law School, Chris worked on national security and border security issues at the Department of Justice before serving as a top lawyer for the Republican Party. He moved back to Texas and built the nation's top conservative law practice, consistently winning for conservatives in the toughest legal and political battles of our time. And I'm also told by one of his colleagues that his first job was breaking up pipelines in the state of Texas, and that was very important for me to communicate that. So I'm making sure that everybody knows that's what your first job was. So please help me welcome Chris Gober.
Howdy. So, as kind of mentioned in that introduction, so 7th-generation Texan and, raised in small rural communities, farming and ranching communities of Throckmorton and Graham. And, that's where, as a small-town rural Texan, you learn early that the values that built Texas, faith, hard work, and looking out for your neighbor, they aren't just traditions. They are the foundation of sound policy, and I'm looking forward to taking those Texas values and that fight to Washington. Since graduating from Texas A&M and Harvard Law School, I've spent the last 2 decades as an attorney representing conservative candidates and causes across America, and I've been proud to have Texas Public Policy Foundation as one of those clients. And I just want to take a moment and say thank you for what you do here. It's very important. And you've heard it said, as goes Texas, so goes our nation. That means the leaders gathered here represent and impact millions of Texans and Americans at a time when our state and our nation face critical challenges. So as I look across this room, I see leaders dedicated to securing our borders. I see pioneers committed to continued economic development and prosperity, as well as problem solvers who understand that water rights, power policy, and critical infrastructure are vital to Texans in both rural and urban communities. And I see fighters, Texans who care deeply about our state, your fellow Texans, and our way of life. But most importantly, I see leaders marked by principle, wisdom, and integrity. So as we listen to the speakers and consider policy throughout this conference, let's remember that behind every one of these topics is a Texan, a family counting on us to get this right. I pray we leave here sharper, bolder, and more united in that fight. So with that spirit in mind, let's begin this day the way Texans always have, by asking for God's guidance. So would you join me in prayer? Heavenly Father, as we gather today, we thank you first and foremost for your Son, Jesus, who took on human flesh to provide us with salvation as the way, the truth, and the light. We thank you for the opportunities and responsibilities bestowed upon us and on the great state of Texas. Lord, thank you for the leaders in this room who are passionately working to serve Texans and our nation. leaders willing to tackle the difficult challenges that lie ahead. We know that we are mere stewards of the responsibilities and resources you've given us. We seek your blessing and your guidance as we listen, learn, and carry this work forward. Keep our actions and intentions aligned with your will, Father. We ask all of this in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Chris, thank you for that powerful start to our morning. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please go ahead and enjoy your breakfast. We will resume our program soon. Thank you. Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I hope you're enjoying your breakfast. As we resume our program, I want to recognize our legislators and elected officials who are here with us this morning. Please hold your applause until everyone is recognized. We have Senator Kevin Sparks here. Hi. We have Senator Angela Paxton, Senator Adam Hinoza, and Senator Bob Hall. We have from the House of Representatives, Representative Katrina Pearson, Representative Richardson, Representative Wilson, Representative Holt, and Representative Alders. Everyone, please show our elected officials the respect and due. Thank you for their service. Thank you. I would also like to introduce former Texas Senator and today's keynote panelist, Chancellor of the Texas Tech University System, Brandon Creighton, former Texas Comptroller and today's keynote panelist, Chancellor of the Texas A&M University, Glenn Hegar. Thank you. Today's breakfast sponsor is Walmart, and we are proud to have their continued support. Thank you to them and all of our TPS sponsors who are here with us today for helping us make this day and this entire week possible. You will see their support listed on the screens during all of the conference meals, and I would like to invite Shannon Lanning and David Hunt to join me on stage as I introduce them. Come on up. Excellent. Shannon Lanning is the Branding and Marketing Director for 2521 Entertainment, where she brings creativity, collaboration, and a big picture mindset to shaping the company's voice and visual identity. An entrepreneurial at heart, Shannon has been building and running successful businesses since 2010. Those experiences give her a practical, strategic approach to marketing and brand development, always with an eye toward meaningful growth and strong market presence. She earned her bachelor's degree in communication from Texas Tech University. That's right. After early pursuits in the culinary world, including running a highly regarded catering business, Shannon, in addition to being happily married and, she's not a father of two. My pages have stuck together. So sorry, Shannon. She eventually transitioned into design, founding a successful company that ultimately led to her starting 2521. We have David Hunt with us. David Hunt is a feature film director, writer, and editor, and the co-founder and chief creative and content officer of 2521 Entertainment. After studying computer systems engineering at the University of Arkansas, he launched a successful advertising business serving Walmart vendors. Hunt broke into filmmaking with the award-winning short film Jeremiah's Song, followed by his debut feature Living Dark, the story of Ted the Caver, which won International Film Festival awards and was released by New Films International in 2016. Through 2521 Entertainment, Hunt has developed and contributed to multiple feature projects and television series. David lives in Arkansas with his wife and 3 children. Please help me welcome Shannon and David.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Gosh, I love Policy Summit. I feel like I always leave here more inspired, fired up, and ready to grab my political pitchfork and just charge into battle. But first, I want you to picture this. It's 1753. An inexperienced, uneducated 21-year-old surveyor rides through the frozen Ohio wilderness with a message that could ignite a world war. No army behind him and no fame before him. Just cold air in his lungs, a horse beneath him, a musket beside him, and unbridled ambition. Ice cracks as he crosses the Allegheny River that will try to kill him. Native nations stand in the shadows, just watching. The French forces are advancing, and the most powerful empire in the world, the British Crown, is gambling it all on a kid. That kid is young George Washington. Not the statue, not the dollar bill, nor the general, the man asked to be king, but who became our first president. You see, we always picture Washington as if he was always Washington, white hair, composed, commanding, inevitable, as if his greatness was guaranteed, but history doesn't begin with monuments. His legacy was carved slowly by uncertainty and wild risk, by unbelievable failure, by decisions made when no one was watching. His future was not guaranteed, it was forged by fire, and as one movie says, great men are not born great, they become great. This foundational but forgotten chapter and the chance to reignite a genuine love for this country is why we at 2521 Entertainment teamed up with John Irwin, the creator of Amazon's House of David, among other things, and Angel Studios to make the movie Young Washington. It releases in theaters on July 3rd, and you cannot get more patriotic than that. It is pretty awesome. The world doesn't need another lecture on courage, conviction, and leadership. It needs to experience leadership, feel conviction, and take courage. So at 2521, we don't just preach values, we dramatize them. We put you in the snow and on the battlefield, in the moments where turning back would be so much easier. Because the same courage that drove a very young Washington into the unknown 250 years ago is the same kind of courage it takes to step into this wild culture and radically change it, which is what we are doing. With that in mind, please enjoy this clip of young Washington followed by David Hunt.
What happened, Washington? All those bullet holes in your jacket. How are you alive?
I don't know.
You have no military service. You are a boy. You are not British, yet they send you to speak for them. So that when you fail, they'll have someone to blame.
Young Washington, you lost in the New World.
Who does own this land, if not the one who has the will to tame it? You do not want to start a war. What do we do? We fight! Hold your ground! There is no retreat!
What are you called?
My name is George Washington.
Help us make this the #1 movie on America's 250th. Pre-order tickets at angel.com/250. Exclusively in theaters July 3rd.
Thank you for having me, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, if not the burden of having to follow George Washington. My father passed away from dementia almost exactly 1 year ago. And even when he still could function day to day, as his memory faded, something deeper faded with it. The experiences, the stories, the things that made him who he was, they began to disappear. And when a person loses their memory, they don't just lose facts, they lose themselves. I don't think a nation is any different. A nation has a memory too, a shared one. And when that memory fades, when people no longer know the stories that shape them, you don't just lose knowledge, you lose identity. You become not a people with a shared purpose, but a collection of individuals who happen to live inside the same borders. What we're facing right now is a kind of cultural dementia. And when that happens, it's very hard to know where you are or how you got here. It's like walking into the last 5 minutes of a movie. You think you know what's going on, but you don't really understand it. And that's why stories matter. Stories are how we remember. Stories are how we understand who we are. And that's why a project like Young Washington, it's not just entertainment, it's memory. It's a way of reconnecting with the ideas, the struggles, and the character that gave rise to this great country in the first place. Because if a nation stops telling its own stories, you have to ask, does it still believe they're worth telling? 2521 Entertainment, we believe they are. Politics, of course, is a very important thing. It creates our laws. But culture creates the will that leads to those laws. Again and again, we've seen that culture moves first and politics follows. So if culture shapes us, what shapes culture? Well, one way or another, primarily it's stories, always has been. Jesus Christ taught most of his lessons via parables for a reason. Stories matter. Stories work. They shape how people see the world and how they see themselves. Because stories are not just how we remember the past, stories are how we decide who we become. That's what Young Washington's about. And that's what the rest of the Founders series, beginning with 1776, will be about. That's what the dozen-plus films that we have coming out in 2026 will be about. And that's what our recent animated film, David, which was released in theaters this last December, was about in an even deeper way. And David's $80 million plus domestic box office proved that even in a noisy, distracted world, the hunger among audiences remains for stories that are compelling enough to engage, honest enough to matter, and powerful enough to help a culture remember itself. At 2521 Entertainment, our goal is to bring people those stories and to do our part with honor and intention to help shape the culture that politics will ultimately reflect. Because in the end, before a nation can decide where it's going, it has to remember who it is. Thanks.
It's now my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Greg Sindelar, Chief Executive Officer of the Texas Public Policy Foundation. As you heard yesterday, Greg joined the Texas Public Policy Foundation in 2007 and became our CEO in 2001. I'm sorry, that's wrong again, sorry. That's 2021. In addition to being a happily married and proud father of 2 daughters and a brown Labradoodle, which we always have to include that in the bio, he is a proud Texas Aggie, who promises not to ask the chancellors what is the greatest university in Texas and why is it Texas A&M. Welcome, Greg.
Good morning. Well, what about Julie Warren? She is truly tremendous. The only thing I can say bad about Julie is she's not from Texas, but she lives in Tennessee, and she reminds me there would be no Texas without Tennessee. So we're grateful for Sam Houston, for you giving us Sam Houston, Julie. That's right. That's right. Well, it's my great pleasure to be up here today with 2 of our great chancellors. I should, just so we know, we're on the UT campus, and we do not have the UT chancellor, but we did invite him. He just had another, I think he had a family vacation, if I'm not mistaken. And so we were hoping to have all 3 of our new chancellors, but it's kind of a unique time in Texas when 3 of our major university systems are all experiencing leadership change. But this morning, I'm just so honored to be joined by 2 friends and 2 distinguished Texans who lead two of the top university systems. We'll see how they feel of which one is the top. With more than 240,000 students, 17 institutions, and with a budget of nearly $12 billion and $2 billion in combined research expenditures. First, I would love to bring up Chancellor Brandon Creighton. He serves as the 6th Chancellor of Texas Tech University System, bringing decades of experience in public service, higher education leadership, and private sector development to a system at the forefront of growth, academic excellence, and national visibility. He's an 8th generation Texan, so Chris Gober, he's got 1 generation on you. And he was born and raised in Conroe, Texas. And he was elected, of course, first to serve in the Texas House of Representatives before moving to the Texas Senate, where he led the fight not just on school choice, which we talked about a lot last night, but also on all of the major higher education reforms that we're going to talk about in just a few moments. So please help me welcome wonderful Texas Tech Chancellor and good friend, Chancellor Brandon Creighton.
Brandon's great.
Thanks, Brandon. All right, we'll just call him Brandon. Call him Brandon. All right, and last and certainly not least is Glenn Hegar, who serves as the 15th Chancellor of Texas A&M University System and is only a 6th generation Texan. You know, I'm a 0th generation Texan, so I don't know what I'm doing on this stage. Chancellor Hegar was raised in Hockley, Texas, and he earned a degree from Texas A&M in 1993, a law degree from St. Mary's University, and a master's degree in law from the University of Arkansas. We won't discuss that when we're playing Arkansas in football. He obviously served in the Texas legislature as a state representative and a state senator before becoming the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts, where, as I like to tell him, he was Doge before Doge was cool. So please help me welcome the Chancellor of Texas A&M University, Glenn Hegar. All right, Roy, your timer. You can keep us on time. All right. Well, get things out of the way. I'm wearing my Aggie tie today, but it is no offense to you, Chancellor Creighton, Brandon. I'll call you Brandon. But I lost another bet on the football game, and so I have to wear burnt orange tonight. So I'm just trying to soak in as much maroon before tonight. So.
Thank you for not wearing that while I'm here.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want you to kick me off stage. Well, let's start with maybe the easy questions, and we'll go into the harder questions. So maybe y'all want to tell us who has the best college football team in the state? You know,
Red Raiders.
I think our board member Cody Campbell would agree with you, although our other board member Chaz Neely might not. Well, let's talk about y'all both came from elected office into being chancellors of 2 major systems. What has that transition been like? What are the things that kind of met your expectations? What are the things you didn't expect? And what are the best parts of the job now that you've been in it for a little bit? So I'll start with you, Brandon.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having both of us here. I think it's not only a great opportunity to be in front of this audience and to be here with TPPF, but just to talk about our experiences as we've transitioned towards higher ed and former lawmakers. And Glenn and I have worked together a very long time, great relationship, and many of our chancellors, are in that situation. And so I would tie that to my answer is it's been outstanding working with the chancellors, and many of them are new across the state. We've started a quarterly lunch where we're getting together and we're talking and just trading ideas, talking about reforms. Obviously, I was working very hard in my previous life to bring the reforms along with so many of our members here that I'm seeing and smiling at as we've just worked in the trenches to change the way that policies work on our higher education campuses, and to be blessed enough to be on the front lines now at one of the best universities in America, at Texas Tech, just being able to see that unfold and to work through the enforcement side of it. But enforcement is important. We've got to have teeth in these statutes, and we've got to carry through. But I would also say working with an incredible Board of Regents at Texas Tech and with our staff and our teams and leadership, it's been It's been an incredible process of, that I would say is a united front to roll up our sleeves and get to work and make sure that our campuses and our students and our faculty, that they're ready and evolving for what I know we'll talk about during this conversation, which is a quickly changing workforce and economic landscape. So I've enjoyed the people. I've enjoyed going to, lunch with 12, 15 students on campus, just getting to know the human capital side of the best that West Texas offers, but our campuses are in so many different other places. It's just been fantastic to be a part of it.
That's wonderful. Well, and I guess you probably, as you're writing a lot of this legislation, you didn't think, oh, now I'm going to have to implement it either.
I did not.
So and I want to get into that of like, well, what are the things maybe you like, we should have done this differently, or we should need to look at this. But Glenn, I would love for you, coming from the comptroller's office over to A&M, what has been the best parts, what have been the things that you didn't expect?
Yeah, I appreciate that. One, it's good to be here. Good to see so many people. Always good to be back in Austin, at least for a short period, because it reminds me why I love being in College Station. So thank y'all for that opportunity today, no matter what. When we were driving over from the airport, I was like, wow. How long is it going to take us to get over there today? And no matter where you're at in College Station, it's about a 15-minute drive, and that's pretty good. Or across any of our campuses across the state of Texas in mostly rural communities, which is really great. I tell you, when you were asking the question, I was thinking a word, what was it like? Well, it's been intense, it's been challenging, and it's been extremely rewarding. I would say if I phrased up, I was in my old job for 10 years, which was extremely rewarding to be able to serve the people of the state of Texas in that capacity. Truly a highlight of my public service career. I was fortunate enough to have the legislature that every legislative session, whether we asked or not, they said, we got another job for you, Glenn, and your team. So, we were proud of being able to have that ability to stand up new programs and opportunities, but it was time for a new challenge. Wow, I didn't know what a challenge it'd be. I did say in the first few months, people would say, how is it? Are you liking it? And I want to say, I think that comes in year 2, was my typical answer. About February of this year, which the board had made the decision to make me the sole finalist March of last year, and about February, I woke up one day, I was on campus somewhere across the state, and I thought, I'm having fun. So it only took about a year. But, during that fall, I remember one time somebody had asked me, they said, so is it like drinking from a fire hose? And I said, no, not at all, none whatsoever. We have this going on, this and here, 12 campuses, 8 state agencies, 180,000 students, fantastic, amazing research we're doing, service to the people of the state of Texas through our agencies. In fact, there were a lot of things in my first few months that I want to go back and read that job description when I applied for Chancellor, because there's a lot of things that were not in that job description.
I think there's a bullet that says, "In all other duties as
that's it.
agreed upon."
That's what people said it's that last catch-all. Other duties as assigned. I have told my regent several times. I said somebody had false advertising. Okay, but the point being to come back around as I was given that discussion, I just said, no, it's really not like one fire hose. It's like 100, and it was intense. But I'd echo the Chancellor. More than anything else, being around some of our 180,000 students somewhere is very rewarding. But then people always ask me, so what worries you and keeps you up at night? And I say, did I tell y'all that we have 180,000 18 to 22-year-olds somewhere around the state of Texas? And then I get a text from, I saw President Wendler earlier or one of his colleagues, and they give me an update of somebody did something stupid. So it's rewarding, but it's truly an awesome opportunity to serve in this capacity.
Well, and it's not like the students or the alumni are passionate about what's happening at these universities either.
None whatsoever. Passion is bolded, highlighted, and circled many times, which makes it even more special.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun. Well, Senator Creighton, getting into some of the legislation, as I mentioned, you were the author of SB 37, which really strengthened a lot of the governance in our institutions of higher education. And so obviously, and we want to talk about some of the other legislation that you worked on the higher ed side, but what was the motivating factor behind that? And what was the motivating factor for you as you really spearheaded a lot of the reforms that we've seen the last few sessions on higher education?
So, yeah, Senate Bill 37, it ties to, obviously curriculum and governance overall for our campuses. It was really a 2.0 extension of what we had accomplished the previous session in Senate Bill 17 that was targeted at banning diversity, equity, and inclusion offices on campus and making sure that DEI was not so heavily ingrained or ingrained at all in hiring. We were seeing across the state that political leftist loyalty oaths were having to be signed for an applicant to even apply to be a professor or on faculty at universities all over the state. We had universities that were terminating professors simply for pledging to treat every student equally. We had Asian American students at universities that were being excluded from DEI. So we corrected that in Senate Bill 17. Senate Bill, where that dealt with hiring, Senate Bill 37 is the next chapter dealing with curriculum. And as we all know, many times in the legislature, there's only so much oxygen in the room for these big reform lifts and these big bills. And so it took us 2 sessions to accomplish who is allowed to come in the door, and is it a balanced approach to hiring? And for curriculum, have we had what faculty call academic drift? And they've acknowledged that there was quite a heavy extension of that. We would all call that, basically there was quite a bit of garbage in curriculum all over, university campuses in America, really, that parents were, by and large, growing trends saying we've had enough. 10 years ago, only 36% of Texas parents approved of the value of Texas degrees that were being produced and the experience of their students on university campuses. Just as of a couple of years ago, that number's up in the high 40s, almost to 50%. So we're climbing back to a level of confidence on what we all need to be focused on, which is producing a degree of value for this evolving economic landscape, and looking at all the degrees that are not producing value, that students are spending $40, $50, $60, up to $100,000 through their college experience, and they're expecting to get a good paying job, right? And at Texas Tech, I mean, we're going to remain the tip of the spear on producing the highest degree of value, not just producing those that can one day be a professor, and that's noble, but to be able to apply in the private sector what you learn and to quickly join the workforce as it's evolving. And we'll talk about this, but what higher education looks like in the next 60 months is going to surprise all of us, or less. There's going to be, if there's a pie chart, a 4-year university, it might be 40, 50, 60% of that pie chart, but there's a growing education marketplace out there, and for 4-year universities to compete, I personally believe no matter what artificial intelligence brings, that our society will reward credentials, work ethic, integrity, and performance, and to show that a recent graduate with that credential put in the time, had rigor in their curriculum, and produced in a way that the private sector will appreciate. I think that's going to continue to be the case, but I do believe artificial intelligence will touch each and every facet of those disciplines that are taught, and that's why we just closed a deal with NVIDIA, Jensen Huang Direct, on one of the most exciting announcements that higher ed produced this year so far in having their fastest hyper-performance computation chips in the world, definitely among American universities.
Yeah, and I definitely want to make sure we get into that because I think you're absolutely right. You know, I always tell people about whether it's school choice or higher education, like the way that we're going to be educating our children very soon, we can't even imagine. And so I want to make sure that we hit on that point. But before we do that, Glenn, I would love, I thought Brandon made a really good point about having high ROI degrees, right? And I know at A&M, you've looked a lot at this. SB 37 has really provided some powerful tools to do this. To how do you ensure that the classes you're offering, the courses you're offering, actually are leading kids to getting that high ROI?
Yeah, thank you for that. One of the things that immediately upon I was asked, what is your thought, opinion, or direction that you want to take as the chancellor? And obviously, as I said earlier, whether it's our students, our research, or our service to the people of the state of Texas, and if we look at our students, one of the points that I said clearly is that part of that direction is to make an economic opportunity and a difference for them. It's a generational change. So that's a return on investment, that what they are getting, they actually have a quality job. They can actually be productive citizens. And when I say that, part of it, in my opinion, it is imperative that we in our system across higher ed, it is not just about a return on investment, but an add-on on top of that of people of character, people of service. That's part of the value system, whether it's at Texas A&M University or across the system, that we want people to think about serving beyond yourself. And I think that's a key component that is a fabric of our state that I think is near and dear to our institutions, and we need to keep that. But if you look at, directly for your question, part of the process that we look at, and even more so now, is across all of our courses, all of our degrees, what is that return? What is the number of students that are in those? And those low performing, we have to take down. We have to remove some of those. Now, of course, you may have, very high potential degrees for earning that maybe it costs more money to educate students than you can actually charge them, right? So you have to take in other factors, is my point. But I think we are looking on, I do think Brandon mentioned, the add-ons you can do, different certificates or add-ons that gives additional value to that degree. So that's imperative. But we have a process in place, and we look at it at a much tighter level than we have before on how do we make sure that we're having that return on investment and working with industry partners. I mean, for example, there's a big meeting with a big company that does a lot of hiring from Texas A&M University, whether it's in engineering, whether it's in our business school, across the university. I mean, we're the #1 provider to this massive company. And so part of what we were talking about is how do we make sure that we are refining and retooling some of those degree programs for the skill sets that they need. And that's important. If you talk about AI, which I know we'll get into more, I think it's a mistake to say, oh, you can't use that. No, we need to teach you how to use it, but it's a tool and it's a supplement. It's not a replacement, right? You can't write your paper just based on an AI program because it's going to have things that are not correct in there. It's a tool. It's another tool, but it's not a supplement. And so we need to make sure our students and us as adults too, in my not very computer literate capabilities, but with that being said, we have to make sure that we're constantly training them on the tools of today.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, right? Because college, right, you're still trying to help kids learn how to think and how to make decisions, and we don't need to go from the professors telling them what to think to just ChatGPT telling them what to think, right? So, but kind of going off of that point, Glenn, I would love for you to talk a little bit about, in SB 37 also address some of the issues with faculty senates. Yeah. I think one of the things that we had seen is governance had been maybe advocated, the regents and others had advocated too much power to the faculty senates, and they were making too many decisions for the universities. How have you seen that change since the implementation of this law?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think part of what that had, and of course, and like so many things in life, as we at Texas A&M University system eliminated the faculty senates per the law in August 31 of last year, and as in so many things in life, this is going to drastically change, or oh my goodness. No, the faculty, they're an important role. They are a completely important part of educating our students. and they are part of the university. And so therefore they have a role, but a redefining of clearly what the lanes are. And it's no different than on the on my floor at the exec level. I make the point to my team, each team member has a lane. And I need you to be in your lane and not cross over. However, when there's a project that Brandon and I can work on in different lanes, we work together. And so my point is a redefining of those lanes. These are the clear lanes for the regents. These are the clear lanes for the faculty advisory councils, because they are advisory. And so therefore, that words of shared governance, it's not truly a shared governance that this is, we are all three sharing in. No, you have a role, and I have a role. And so I think the faculty play an important part, but here's the role you play. And being able to redefine that and reconstitute those councils across all 12 of our universities with the president at each campus playing a lead role in getting that faculty set in that position and having different numbers. You know, there's not a magical number that it has to be X size. It's right size to that university and that size. So I think it was a good refresh and a redefining of what those roles are. Oh, wait, he said he knows something about this topic.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. You're the expert.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. Glenn's answer was spot on, but you know, from the 1950s on, shared governance among faculty, and it's really a nomenclature that was created through national organizations that represent higher education faculty, right? And so a key tenet of Senate Bill 37 was to make sure in statute that it was clear that faculty Senate governance was communicative only. It was only for informative purposes, because that shared governance nomenclature, somehow it had never been in statute, but it had risen to the point to where, you know, it was faculty driven when pamphlets were distributed all over the University of Texas campus to join our comrades from MIT to commandeer the South Lawn and certain academic buildings, and bricks and broken cinder blocks were hidden in piles in key areas around the campus for when law enforcement showed up on horseback to keep order, and students were not even comfortable walking to finals. Jewish students were, you know, being hurled, you know, rhetoric that I can't even repeat today. And that is just not what is going to happen on our campuses at Texas universities in America.
Well, and I think that's the cultural rot that as Texans that aren't in it every day, people were experiencing and seeing. And I know a lot of these reforms are addressing. And so, Brandon, how do we continue to ensure that in our universities and our colleges that we're not indoctrinating kids and we're not politicizing everything that's happening, but we're allowing kids to, you know, explore and understand different aspects of life and political ideologies. And it's not that we're trying to lead them that this is the only way. If you want an A, you have to write this. Or if you want to get a degree, you have to do this.
Well, again, as an extension of the requirements of Senate Bill 37, we're going through an exhaustive review of all courses within our university system. And with, you know, a couple of thousand faculty and over, you know, 65,000 students and 14,000 courses, you can do that on the honor system, where those courses are just submitted and they're checked green light or red light from the faculty, or you can do what Texas Tech has done, and we've built an AI algorithm, and we've submitted the syllabus and all course reading materials and the lesson plans from the previous teachings of those courses through, again, an exhaustive process to understand what are we dealing with. And, you know, Texas Tech is already a launching pad of integrity, leadership, grit. You know, the students that are coming into Texas Tech, unlike many universities across the country, those students are coming in with those values, and they're actually leaving with those values enhanced. Sometimes a university experience, as we all know, a student might come in with those values and they're not leaving with those values, and we're making sure that we protect that. But on the course review, we'll be releasing within a couple of days our guidance and our findings from a complete evaluation of all of our coursework to make sure that we're teaching analytical thinking, we're teaching rigorous curriculum that leads to the degree that we would all expect of the highest value for this evolving economic landscape, and that we are closing out courses that don't contain that kind of curriculum. It doesn't have curriculum that's relevant and necessary to lead to a degree of value or a credential or a license, or that it has indoctrination type content that is very easy to see, and that we have clear guidance from statute, from executive orders, from the governor's related executive orders, and our decisions on campus from our leadership, from our Board of Regents, which we have Regent Cash here today from the Texas Tech University system. So we've got a very good plan in place, and I believe that it will produce the best curriculum in America. I also believe it will be a national model when we're finished.
Wonderful. So I'm told we only have 5 minutes left, and I have about 30 more questions. So we're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to be very judicious in where we finish. But I think
what he's telling us is don't talk like we're state senators on the floor.
Yeses and nos.
Yeses and nos. No, we're not going to get through all of them. I think actually where I want to end is, what is the future of higher education? What are the reforms that we want to see? What are, with all of the changes that are happening technologically, what is workforce going to look like, and how are universities preparing our children to enter that workforce? And so, Glenn, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think first, we can't lose sight that there is extremely important, and we learned this during that very terrible time we had this thing called COVID, that you can't take students out of a classroom. There may be supplementals to where there's some online learning or other opportunities, but people have got to be in a room together. They have learned from each other. I think that ability to go down the hall, have a conversation with a professor, or when you're in a workplace, you can't take that away. So I think that's a foundation we have to remember. All the tools, we talked about some of them, again, they're a tool. They're not a supplement, they're not a replacement. It's a changing in society with technology and capabilities. Brandon talked about trying to gain back that trust of higher education. I think higher education plays a role in adding to economic opportunities to our students, the character of our students, which are really important, as I mentioned earlier before. Those foundations have to continue to be there. But it's how do we adjust, how do we change in a state that, oh, by the way, I always mention this in my old job or the current job, when you wake up, there's roughly another 1,200 people that call text home every day. Every day. We are growing as a state. We have an economic opportunity. It is imperative that as we continue to grow, we give that economic opportunity and expansion to that return on and value of investment, as you mentioned earlier. All of those pieces are important. But I think more than anything else, Brandon hit on it earlier, we have to make sure that people are recognizing and we instill back in that trust that there is a value in higher education. And where it's not, we need to eliminate that, because the fact is it doesn't play a role, whether it's a course, a degree program, or whatever that may be. And we also need to make sure, because unfortunately so much over time that creep or so is that when you look at a area of study, whatever that may be, the teachings within that, if it was this wide, there's so many places that the teaching is this wide. And we have to expand that out. It's not our job, as you said earlier, to say, oh, indoctrinate from the right or from the left, or this is the right theory or belief. No, we need to give you that expanded knowledge and make you learning how to think and learning how to pick what is right in that expansion. And I think higher ed has gotten very narrow in certain areas, and we have to make sure that that expansion is out there, because that's true higher education.
Amen to that. Final words from you, Chancellor Creighton, on that issue and kind of how you see the future of higher education.
Question, did you say brief final words? I'm sorry.
I wouldn't dare.
I would respectfully ask for a match on the time frame that my colleague was allowed to give on this statement, and I know this audience fully respects that.
All right, somebody's going to go back and time how many words we said and put the clock out there on TPPF
We're always competing,
website.
right? We'll figure it out.
Hey, we compete on the stage, off the stage, on the field.
Yeah, I know my former colleague, Senator Hall, has a clock on him, a watch on him right now. He can time it. So quickly, yes, I mean, the AI, for instance, is going to change the landscape quickly, and how higher education can evolve fast enough to where our families all over this state and across the country that are looking for a university experience to not just participate in a credential, but to be working with, in our case, key faculty research experts and NVIDIA engineers, for instance, at our innovation hub that we're standing up now, where we will fly the double T flag with the #1 market cap valued company in the world, to understand how we can be the best stewards we can possibly be for this quick influx of the changes that AI will bring to the education experience. It's going to touch every discipline: education, engineering, business, agriculture, you name it. Every different discipline of the university experience. We may quickly look at micro-credentialing and stackability and portability of different degree plans and set aside electives and courses that students have had to take for years that don't apply directly to that high degree of value for this ever-changing workforce. We've got to accomplish this quickly. We've got to promote it in a way that the public and our families and future students and faculty that we're recruiting have confidence. And we've got to, again, make sure, and I've said this, I'll say this again, we've got to be good stewards with this changing technology. We've been using artificial intelligence as long as any of you have been using spell check. But what is coming soon with agentic, full reasoning artificial intelligence is a completely different level of the responsibility that we will all have in the human capital side of things to manage it correctly. I believe that Texas universities will be the best in America at the ethics involved and the decision-making involved to leverage that. And I believe that Texas Tech will be the tip of the spear in defining what all of that means for our future students as they look for that education experience and the values that come with it that's been offered at Texas Tech for generations.
Well, thank you. Please help me thank our wonderful chancellors, Chancellor Creighton and Chancellor Hegar. Thank y'all.